Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on this very windy but warm day. We are going to take you through some exciting tips and tricks for adding in, basically creating and maintaining your listings. So with that, I want to introduce you to what I call him the wizard, the man behind the scenes, working so diligently to make this transition from Realty Server to Paragon as smooth as possible, and that is Brian Alford. He is our CIO, our Chief Information Officer. He's also our technical officer. He basically is the one who makes everything run behind the scenes. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Brian.
All right. Thank you, Colleen. I'm just going to go through this really quick. Just an update of where we were, where we are right now, and a little more updates. So let me get into it right here. Just a reminder to everybody why we're going through this disruptive period that includes maybe some technical issues or whatever. And I don't want to dwell on that, but I want to say that we are working on those, continue to report anything that's out there or any problems. But unfortunately, that's just the case of converting from one MLS system to another. So that's something I'll continue to work through any of those details. But just to remind, we've been doing this for a long time, over 12 years. We brought on 6 or 7 other boards onto this platform. Each one brings its own unique challenges. So you're not unusual in that respect. But some of the reasons that your leadership made this decision was because of the board level autonomy control that you have within the MLS system. You're not giving up your MLS system at all. As a matter of fact, you retain all of your branding, fields, communication, rules. But I want to remind you, with the fields, we are all under NAR's mandates of real estate standards. So that doesn't mean every single field that you had in your previous MLS system will convert over onto this platform. But we will be introducing common fields that you had previously if they fall in line with the real estate standards. So all I ask is be patient. We're going to be introducing those as well as new data sheets. Data sheets will be available under MLS Docs, as well as we're making arrangements to make sure that they're in zip form as well. And in addition to everything that we're providing the Clare-Gladwin board, we support all of that too. So all of these products that we provide today, Paragon, Showing Time, Realist, those 3 are live today. HomeSnap, that is the mobile app that will be available at the end of the month. Actually, most likely technically next week, but I like to make sure everything works the way it's supposed to before we officially release it. We don't offer zip form, but what we do offer is the MLS connector, MLS update. What this does is it allows you to pull data from the MLS. So when you're able to pull that information, you can auto-populate documents that are within zip form. We also offer deep linking to RPR, so any of the listings that are within the MLS system will all link out to its data within RPR. And we do offer a tax autofill, which will auto-populate listings in the listing entry piece. Now, what this enables you to do is to actually start a listing with finding the property in public records and tax assessors records and start a listing with that. So it will pre-populate the listing entry piece with information that is pulled from Realist. And on your previous system, one of the big differences between your previous system and this system is the data sharing. What we've done is introduced a number of additional MLSs and associations. So as of today in Paragon, not only do you have your own board, Clare-Gladwin, but you have these as well as the Northern Great Lakes Realtors. So everything in the blue, Bay County, East Central, Greater Shiawassee, Lenawee County, my rural source, Saginaw board, southeastern border, that's all in the blue dots, and you can see that is predominantly the southeastern Michigan portion of the MLS, and then you could see Northern Great Lakes. Now, Northern Great Lakes is a different type of data share. They were not willing to give us full cooperation, but they were willing to give us access to their MLS system. But unlike a shared, a password exchange or anything like that, it's not a shared account. It's your account. You don't need to know a separate login or password. So what you do is, whoops, I just want to make sure. You just simply click under resources, and you'll see I've changed or updated some of these things. And it says Northern Great Lakes Data Share. Click on that, and it's your own version of Paragon. You could put in your clients, save searches, and so on. Just a reminder of what we went through. We're all going to look back on this and laugh, but I know right now people are still struggling to just understand what's going on and some of the changes. And that's what we're here for. We're not going to leave you. We are your partner in this, as long as you're on our platform. So February 1st, we went into parallel, and then on the 26th, we went read-only, and then that was what was, on March 1st, is what we call the cutover. Everything switched over to Paragon, and that included showing time. So that's where we're at today. All listing maintenance updates or anything like that. And one thing I want to address is this might be one of the big shocking things for agents when they start editing their listings that came over, is a lot of these fields weren't populated. Again, you hear me say real estate standards. These are NAR mandates, so we're required to follow these. So a lot of these follow in line what are standard fields, and this is all it's missing. And this is what it looks like when you touch a listing. And when I say touch, I mean edit a listing. So, and it looks overwhelming, it really does. But when you drill down to what's really going on here, you're going to see that this is the compensation fields. And what we require is, are you offering a buyer's agency compensation, a sub-agency compensation, a non-agency or transaction coordinator? And if you are, then we're asking the amount, the type. In other words, is it a dollar, percentage? Is it gradient? Is it something that an offer on the first 100,000 and then a certain percentage on the remaining amount? So it really, it has to do with completing this information so that it's clear as to what sort of compensation is offered. What else is in here are the bathroom levels. All the bathroom levels are required, and all of the bedroom dimensions are required. So if those weren't in there, and we tried to pull over as much as we could, but if it wasn't there, there was nothing to convert. So if in the case where the bedroom dimensions were not populated, you're going to have to fill in that information. Now what you have here below, and that covers up here. Part of what's in here is already the compensation field, so we cover that. You're going to get fields like listing exception. Colleen can go into that a little bit more. It has to do with if there's a deal that is that's brokered between maybe somebody in a family, maybe there's some sort of exception on that property. An association fee, is there an association? If yes, then you need to fill in the information of what the fee is. What does that entail? You know, is it monthly, annually? And then any signed disclosures, are they in there? So, and then you'll see any assessments, cross streets, if those weren't populated, year built. If you don't know what it is, put in 0. We encourage everyone to put in the most information that they can, because this is information that is looked back historically, especially for comparables. So it is what you make it. So you can see some other fields in here. They're pretty clear as to what they are. The size of the garage, structure style is at 1.5 story. 2, ownership. Again, we only got part of that. Are there any additional documents on top of what is currently there with the disclosures? And then you'll see some things with the listing broker. Broker signed full service listing. If you're a traditional brokerage, just put yes. If you're not, if you're a discount broker or a limited service broker, then there is a list of questions or information that needs to be filled out. In other words, who's talking? Is it who's negotiating here? Who do we have to contact for showings? And so on. So we just try to make it clear as to what information needs to be published. Okay, some notable points of difference. Our areas are based on the taxing authority, which is another name for a fully incorporated government body that the property is physically located. Yours was kind of a mix between maybe municipalities and associations or POAs. POAs actually belong under the association name. So what you're going to find is we converted the 3 that you had in there. For example, Sugar Springs, White Birch Estates. So you can actually search on those within the association name field. One other difference, body of water, which is the NAR recognized name. Formerly waterfront name, which is what you had in your previous MLS system. It's now body of water. You can search for lakes, as many lakes as you want. For example, Lake Javelin, you could just simply put in Javelin and you'll find that. Statuses, you're on hold is now conditionally withdrawn. There's still a listing agreement. Withdrawn or a canceled listing is unconditionally withdrawn. It's a voided listing agreement. Some new statuses that you'll see coming soon. You're going to see these statuses because now you're data sharing. Now you're exchanging data with MLSs that do provide this service. You have recently, your leadership has decided to adopt accepting backup offers. What that means is that you have an accepted offer on the property, but you're openly accepting any backup offers. The trade-off on this is that it continues to accrue days on market, unlike pending, which stops that. So if the deal falls through, all those days are not accumulated. Except on the accepting backup offers, you do continue to accumulate days on market. So it is something to consider. I would definitely suggest that you think about it before you start using that status. And this is what I've been saying, back in February, is to verify the accuracy of your listings or listings for that matter. Now, we've gone forward and created a report that mimics your full detail. So it really gives you information where you might be, where you would expect to see it based on a familiar report. So I ask that you just look through and you can get to those reports by over to the far right. You'll see available reports when you run a search. Under details, you'll see Clare Gladwin, red B for board. You can click on that. You'll see the familiar report. It has everything that you had before. Really, all these features, including maps where it's located, which these are the things that I really need you to look at, like area. Is it in the right area? Municipality. These really should be the same. The mail city or postal city, is that correct? School district, is that correct? And the geolocation, like I mentioned, on the map, is it where it's supposed to be? Now, if it's your listing, you can edit these today and correct them. If it's somebody else's listing, hit that corrections button, report it. Let us know that information didn't come over correct and it needs to be corrected. It's important to be vocal. And now, this is not the limit of that corrections button. If there's anything erroneous in a listing, you can anonymously report it with that corrections button. It goes to the board staff. I see it as well, as long as I'm still correcting any data that is in your MLS system. So if you correct it, I'll see it, your board staff will see it, but I just encourage the feedback. The more feedback we get, the more accurate your MLS becomes. And just a reminder for those people that haven't logged in, it's just simply all capitals, your login, CGB, plus your previous MLS system login, no spaces, all capitals. And then the first time it's 1111, it'll prompt you to change your password, and that's it. If you have any issue with logging in, I encourage you to reach out to your board or our support staff. In addition to teaching Paragon basics, we do teach more advanced classes like Paragon Advanced, which goes into more detailed customizing reports. Easy CMAs with Paragon, that's another report. You can generate a full CMA. Paragon Connect, that is the client portal, and collaboration center, that's the client portal, as well as public records with Realist. I think we've already had at least one class on that. We go deeper into showing time. We'll be having classes for HomeSnap, I think on the 23rd of this month. So I would encourage everyone to be aware that these new classes, we'll start publishing those very soon, give you a couple of weeks out so that you could start registering for these new classes. In addition to these specific classes that we offer more specialized classes that get into pulling all of those tools together and how to generate or capture more leads and how to make more money in real estate with all these tools that you're given. So those classes are called, there's a lead generation class and social media and real estate. So I would encourage everyone, stay tuned. You'll see some more of these classes on your notice when you log into Paragon, as well as on your board site. And that is it for me. I don't know if there's any questions.
Actually, we did have a question. Okay. The question is, I just lost my little window. Here we go. Okay. All of Sugar Springs have water access. So if you're looking for waterfront in Sugar Springs, you will pull up everything because the lots of the agents have put these listings as waterfront. Is there anything that can be done about that?
Well, that sounds like more of a policy on the end of your board as far as enforcing what waterfront is. Now, there's a number of features that are permitted within Paragon today for water features, and we're going to be introducing new ones that may have been unique to your area, like access to commons, beach access. So those fields or those values will be coming, but if it's not actually waterfront, then it really, even if it's not their property, and I think that's really part of what the complaint that was just issued is probably about, is that land that's in front or meets the water really isn't the property of the of that owner. It's actually a commons to the water, which technically is not waterfront property. It's water view property, it's water access, but it's not waterfront. You can't just very well build on that commons like you could if it was your own property. So all I ask is everyone stay tuned. We're going to be introducing new data sheets that will have some of these new water features like commons to water, beachfront, and so on under the water features. But in the meantime, I think that's probably part of the confusion with labeling them as waterfront, because they do have all these commons within that that POA.
So probably some of the new features that you're adding, though, Brian, that will probably give some more identifying characteristics to that. So that will help a lot. All right, good question. If you have any other questions for Brian, now's your time to throw them in that questions box. And as Brian mentioned, we've got some great classes coming up. We've got the Collaboration Center next week. That's going to be on Tuesday. We've got another listing input class coming Wednesday, and then HomeSnap coming, as Brian mentioned, on Tuesday the 23rd. So HomeSnap is your mobile MLS. The Collaboration Center, if you're not familiar with what that is, that's where you can actually save a search, assign your client to it so they get those automatic emails so that they don't miss any new properties that come up with their criteria. So, all right, looks like you're off the hook. You got no hard questions today. Oh, wait.
All right.
Hey, I spoke too soon. It says, Realty Server customized the MLS by adding water rights in addition to the waterfront field. This allowed us to distinguish between the two. Are you planning on doing something similar? So I think they're addressing the water rights.
Okay, well, I'm not sure what water rights exactly are, but as far as accessibility, you know, that's really something that needs to be clearly defined. And it is there, but I think because you do have this, like I said, there's a lot of common area within the Sugar Springs POA. So it needs to be clear that, you know, the difference between a commons and as far as your water rights. Now, water rights sounds like that's waterfront. In other words, I can build a dock because my property meets the water. Unlike a common where it's an ownership amongst a group or the association. So I think that's where we need to distinguish the difference. If you have rights to the water, that's waterfront. That's what waterfront is, unless I'm interpreting this, or unless you have a different interpretation.
And there are quite a few features there already. So just to point out where those are, if you go under your features category, let me go ahead and share my screen for just a moment. Under the features category, there is one I was just looking at. Hold on. There is association access currently, waterfront, water view, seawall, river frontage, pond, river lake access. As Brian mentioned, we're adding some more, lake frontage, island. So there are quite a few features listed underwater. And as Brian mentioned, we're adding some more that I know sandy bottom and beachfront, and there were a few that were requested previously too. So,
Yep.
All right.
So stay tuned.
All right, well, thank you, Brian, for all your help there. And then I think I can actually walk you through the fun stuff now. So a little bit about me is I've been a realtor now for 22 years, if I haven't got to see you on one of our previous webinars. And my job today is to just show some time-saving tips and tricks when you're in a hurry, you want to get a new listing in as fast as possible. We went ahead and we're working on revising some of the data sheets to meet the new fields that Brian is adding right now for you. But I did want to point out that I've started adding them in already. So if you're looking for those data sheets that you used to use in Realty Server, they are going to look a little bit different because there's a few more features and a few more fields that you can choose from. But I was talking to Mary directly before this class. And so what we did is we went ahead and we added them right into your MLS document section. So right up here at the top. Now, of course, you won't see all of these. These are just because I train for all different boards. But you will see just the Clare-Gladwin Board of Realtors folder. And I went ahead and I added a data sheets folder for you. And so the data sheets, when you're getting ready to input a new listing, you're going to be able to pull the data sheets right from here. Of course, you can print them. You just simply click on them. There is an addendum and a data sheet. So the data sheet is going to kind of be what Brian refers to as top down. You're going to be able to go in and quickly fill out all the read or required information. And we're going to show you some tips and tricks so that you don't have to fill in everything. You can even pull some of the information right from the tax records. So let's actually start off there. I'm going to switch back to my home screen here. Now again, my home screen may look a little bit different. This center section, obviously I don't belong to the Clare Gladwin board, but when you log in, you'll actually see the Clare Gladwin board website, you'll see upcoming classes, and you'll see some helpful information right in the center here for you. But one of the things I want to point out is Realist. Realist is a product that your board has opted to provide for you, and it gives you all 83 counties in Michigan. And what that means is if I'm getting ready to go on a listing appointment, that's really where I want to start. I want to gather all the information. How many bedrooms? When was it built? Do they have a mortgage on the property? When did they buy it? When was it listed? And a lot of that I can see right through Realist. Now, there's two ways to get into Realist. So the first way is if you are looking at the listing, let's say maybe you're going to write an offer on this listing, you want to see what the taxes are. You can go right to the red icon, this little button that you see right here, or even by the property ID, you can click that same red button, and it's going to take you into that Realist record. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because we do have Realist classes. Matter of fact, we just finished a Realist class. I think it was 2 days ago. It is uploaded on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube, My Real Source Media, you'll see the whole class on Realist. You can do mailers, you can do address labels, you can farm areas, you can get all the tax information. So it's a very robust product. Not only that, but it's also what's going to feed a lot of the information for your listings. I'm going to show you a couple cool things there too. So if I go into any MLS ticket, I'm going to see that red icon, and then I'm going to be able to get the information for that particular property. So I can see the school district, the subdivision, the city, the lot size, the tax information, the tax year, is it homesteaded? What the assessor says about that property. So a lot of that municipality information is right here. Now, if there is a discrepancy, if it says one thing in the MLS and another thing in the city records, it's actually going to tell you, it'll show you what the MLS says and then what the tax authority says. But basically the information is generally the same. But the reason I say this is because every once in a while you'll get, let's say, structure style. Maybe the MLS says it's 2 stories, but you just pull up or maybe you see it as 2 stories and the tax assessor says it's 1 story. I had a client who actually he owned one of those sunroom companies, and he actually put a second level on his home. It was just like a dormer on the top. So it became actually a story and a half. So sometimes you'll see those discrepancies, or you'll see discrepancies maybe in the square footage. And that's just an indicator that you probably want to ask that homeowner, oh, I see it says in the MLS that you've got 2,000 square feet, but I see the tax authority says that it's only 1,500. Maybe they put on an addition, things like that. But at least it's kind of an indicator that will allow you to ask those questions, as you see here. As I go forward, another thing I want to look for is it on a basement? Was it ever listed? Who closed it? How much did it close for? So the sales history is in here too. The other thing I like is it also will show you if there's a mortgage history. So I can see that they refied, I can see that a conventional loan maybe was taken out, and you can also see if it's gone to sheriff's sale. So it's always nice, and as you can see here, there was some foreclosure history on this property. So it's a really good way to kind of get an idea of what the city records are saying about that property. And I like it as an agent because if I'm going to walk in and I'm going to tell them their house is worth X, and I see, oh my gosh, they just bought it a year ago and they took a home equity loan out, I want to be able to be prepared for what I'm about to tell them, especially if they happen to be upside down on the home. Okay, so that is Realist. There's 2 ways again to get in. You can actually get in directly from the quick action icon that's going to be located on your listing ticket, or you can also go right up to tax. So let's say it's never been listed before. Let's say it's never been listed before. You want to know all the information about this property. You can go to tax here at the top, and then you're going to click on Realist. pretty easy to use. It's kind of a straightforward interface. And again, there's a whole class on Realist, so don't feel like you have to know all the ins and outs right from this. Lisa Harris did a fantastic class for us yesterday. She will be doing another one at the end of the month. But basically, all you do is you're going to select your county. So find your county in the list. I have Macomb because that's obviously where I am. And you can have more than one county. You're not limited to one. I'm going to say I'm looking for the address 41539 Wessel, and I'm searching in Macomb County. Bam, there's my property ID. I'm going to go ahead and click on that property record, and it's going to be just as you saw a moment ago. So many of them will have photos. It'll have, again, all that listing information. If it's built on a basement, if it's built on a garage, a lot of that's already there. Now, the reason I'm showing you Realist, you're probably like, hey, I thought this was a listing input class. Well, the good news is I'm showing this to you because I want you to be familiar with a lot of that information and where it comes from. Because when you're adding in a listing, the last thing you want to do is go in and have to keystroke in a bunch of information, right? So we have a whole class on Paragon and searching. So if you've taken that class, the Welcome to Paragon class, we show you how to go in, how to search for listings, how to add in criteria, how to find those features we were just talking a moment ago about. But then there, right next to that search icon, is the listings icon. Okay, and this is where I can go. I can maintain a listing, I can save a listing as a partial, or I can add in any new listing. So I want to go in and I want to add in a new residential listing. Now, as Brian mentioned before, you were only seeing the Clare Gladwin information. So of course there were going to be less fields than if you're data sharing, because remember, now you're seeing data from all over. I'm excited to announce that at MiRS, we've now got 94% of the state in our data sharing efforts. So that means when I started 22 years ago, I had to belong to 3 MLSs. I had to pay 3 MLS fees. I had to go in and basically change it in one system and put the exact same information in the next system. And then I was getting fines because I'd forget to take it out of one system and put it into the next system. So it really became very cumbersome. And the idea is that it just didn't work. I didn't want to have to pay all this money and work 3 times as hard. So for the last 12 years, we've been working on data sharing so you can see more listings. And of course, our clients are now seeing a lot more information on places like Redfin and Zillow and Realtor.com. Wouldn't it be great if you could tell them about every property that is on the market in the state and you had extra pieces like disclosures and things that others couldn't see, giving the realtor the advantage? That's the goal. So with data sharing, the long story short is, yeah, you might have a few more fields that you didn't see before. But remember, that's because you are data sharing with a bigger piece of the pie, if you will. More people are seeing your listings and you're going to be seeing more listings. When we talk a little bit about not having all of the fields. So I know everybody kind of has, we kind of call them unicorn fields or unique fields. Every region has some unique fields, and some of those we're adding for you. Some we aren't able to add simply because there's no place to put them in our data sharing effort. Meaning if we're sending them out to another MLS and you have the happy unicorn field and they don't have a place for the happy unicorn field, it doesn't really work as it's supposed to in data sharing. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. The whole goal is that you can see more information in your home MLS and it's getting more exposure in their MLS. So therefore, we've tried to keep the fields on a more consistent level, and NAR has actually created a standard called the REASO compliancy, meaning we want the fields that you know if you're selling in Florida to look like a lot of the fields you know in Michigan. Are there going to be some unique? Absolutely. Can we do every one that's unique? No, unfortunately not. So, okay, let's take a look at the first part of this, and that's the tax autofill. So I'm starting a new listing, but a lot of that information already exists in the tax records. So if I go to this tax autofill button, the idea is kind of like I showed you just a moment ago. I'm going to go in and I am going to find the county that that property is going to reside in. So I'm going to go ahead and click Macomb County. That's where I'm. Now you're going to pick your county, of course, where your property is going to be. Now, I kind of look at this as very Google-esque personally. I think the less information you put in here, the easier it is to actually find the property. So what I mean is, if I am listing 41539 Wessel Drive and I want to quick fill that into my listing, I want to type in the house number here and I want to type the route street name here. So yes, it's Wessel Drive, but really I just want to put Wessel because I find that really less is best when you're doing the tax search. Once you hit search, you can see immediately it brought up that record. And now I want to click on that record. We'll open it up. Yep, that's the address. That's the subdivision. That's what I'm looking for. I want to check it off. And the idea is now I want to autofill that information directly into my listing. Now, the cool thing here is it kind of gives you a real quick rundown of what it's about to import for you. So if there's something you don't want to import, you can deselect it. So for instance, I don't want a bunch of zeros coming over, right? You can see those were already deselected. But if there's something you don't want to import, you can simply deselect it and it won't go into your new listing. In this case, I want to pull everything in. So it's now starting to auto-populate those values for me right into my listing. So when I go to the actual property information, it's filling out things like the county, the address, the mail city, the subdivision, the zip code, the state. So a lot of that is already coming over. Now, of course, anything in red is going to be a required field. So for instance, it wants to know, is this going on the market pending or is it going on the market active? It wants to know what is the status of this property. I guess that's kind of a bad joke today since it seems like there's absolutely no inventory. Type. If I want to know what goes into a particular field, just like if you're searching, if you go to that magnifying glass, it will show you exactly what it's asking for because we know that there's going to be a lot more fields than you had previously. Things like ownership. Is it private? Is it corporate? So all of those things can be entered. And as Brian mentioned, it's kind of a top-down. What you're literally doing is you're just starting at the top and filling in all of the information. I did get a couple questions about a few of these fields in our last listing input class, so I thought I would kind of address them now. One is protection period. It sounds like that's maybe a new field for you. So let me explain what we use that for here in my brokerage is the protection period says if you show the property to someone and let's say they say, you know what, when does your listing run out? Okay, well, I'm going to contact you on that day and we're going to work together and we're just going to sell it privately. Well, that protection period allows us, the agent, and again, you want to check with your brokerage to see if this is a policy you guys have. That protection period allows us to still get compensated for the sale to that party within, most of us, let's say, put in 90 or 120 days. Some people put in 365 days. So that protection period just means that you're protected even after the listing expires. That's generally what that means. Is there a listing exception? I got some questions on this in our last class. And what that means is, let's say the seller says, you know what, Colleen, I really like you. I'm going to list with you. But I told my nephew down the street, if he brings me $150,000 cash, I would sell it to him directly. And I've already kind of brokered that deal. So that's actually what a listing exception is. So here it's asking you, is there a listing exception? Yes or no. If I scroll down a little further, that's going to, Ryan talked a little bit about mail city versus municipality, but basically what you're doing is you're filling in all of the questions in order to make this listing be as accurate as you can. One of the big features that I want to draw your attention to, though, is validating the map. In your GoToWebinar panel section, and again, it's probably minimized at the right side of your screen, I've placed 3 handouts in there that you can save or you can print. If you open up that handout section, you'll see the conversion docs that Brian created with some notes. You'll also see the listing entry that I'm showing you right now, step by step in a nice little PDF that you can save. You'll see the data sheet that you're going to need to fill out in order to create your listing. And you'll also see this next step about validating the map. Why it's important to validate the map is more and more people are searching with their fingertip on a map. They might be using an app to do just that. I know you can do that in the HomeSnap app, which we'll be introducing to you in another week. But basically, validating the map ensures that your geocode location of the listing is in the proper place. Because so many times, unfortunately, you know, we start looking at these listings and all of a sudden they're in the middle of a lake, right? Because it doesn't know where to put that listing on the map. I had one closer to me, and it literally was in the middle of a pond. Literally, my pin was right in the middle of a pond. So if someone's drawing a circle on that subdivision, well, guess what? My listing wouldn't have come up, and that would be horrible. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're validating where our listing is. So there's a little pin up here at the top. Brian always says it's a great idea to get much closer. Get really, close to that pin so you can see it. You can change it from more of an aerial view, so you're not making sure you're not putting it in a field. So if I start zooming in, I want to see exactly where is that pin on the home. Well, 41539 Wessel, I happen to know this because this is the house I just listed, is right here. So I want to make sure I've got that pin in the right place. So make sure you're checking that your listings are not appearing in the middle of the water, that they're actually appearing in the right place. So if someone is searching that way, they are going to pull up your listing. A lot of times I'll tell agents, use the map. Don't use things like subdivision. Where I am, subdivision is not a required field. So if I put in the subdivision name, well, that's unfortunate because a lot of times if the agent doesn't fill it out, I'm not going to see their listing. So what I tell people is search by map. That way I can cover the sub. I'm still pulling everything in, even if the agent didn't bother to put in what the subdivision name is. Okay. So bedrooms, bathrooms, above grade square footage, it's pretty straightforward. No surprises there. Again, a lot of this information you can pull. If it's not pulling in from Realist, you can pull a lot of that in right from here. Acreage, lot size, things of that nature. Body of water. Now, we show you in the Welcome to Paragon class how important it is to be able to search on body of water. We heard from many of you, Wixom Lake and some of the other lakes that Brian mentioned earlier, that you want to be able to search on those. So the important thing is when you're entering your listing, if it is on a lake, you want to make sure you're adding in that body of water like Wixom Lake. Garage type, garage dimensions, again, you'll find all of that in the Realist information. Structure style. If you don't know, again, what they're asking for, be sure to go ahead and click on that magnifying glass to the right, and you can quickly enter that in. All right, now some things are going to be required for you, like a room levels. Is the bathroom on the first floor? Is it in the basement? We want to know that, right? Because that makes a big difference, especially if we're searching for our client and they want 2 full bathrooms on the above grade square footage. Information that Brian mentioned in Sugar Springs, we hear this a lot. There is places for you to put that in right now. So is there an association fee? What is the association name? Is there an association contact? Are pets going to be allowed? Yes or no? Is there a pet restriction? So as you're going through, there are places to be able to put this. I would also recommend right now that you add that into your comments, both the public-facing comments and the agent comments. Because remember, you can even search on keywords. So if I'm searching on Sugar Springs, I'm certainly going to be able to pull that up. Rooms, and by the way, you can expand all of these if it's easier for you. You can just click open all. Sometimes it's a little bit, it's kind of nice when they're in the little compartment because it's not quite so, doesn't quite look so daunting. But as you can see, there's all different rooms. You can quickly enter the level of the room. Is it on the basement, first floor, entry? Is it carpeted? You can put flooring in. So all of that is under the rooms area. Features. So remember, there are lots of different features for homes. And although everything's selling so quickly where I am right now, a lot of agents don't always fill out all of the features. But it is important. We want to fill out as much information as we can. For instance, if the basement is finished, well, I certainly want to tout that. I want to have finished basement here. Okay. Scrolling down, I also want to show you the remarks section. So again, there are public-facing remarks, and this is what the public's going to see when they're out looking at those IDX sites. That's what the public is going to see. However, there's also agent remarks. So maybe you have something that you want to remind the agent about, like Sugar Springs would be a really good example. That maybe we're hearing a lot about the commons to water. Maybe this is an area to put commons to water, or maybe if you have specific, maybe the property's been surveyed, something like that. Those are great ideas to stick in the agent remarks so that the agent has more information and can show your property even better. All right, compensation and tours. This is a big one. So if I go to the compensation and tours, I have the options to pick yes or no. Is there compensation being offered? What the compensation type is, what the compensation amount is, and even a description. If I go a little further down though, that's actually what I wanted to show you, and that's where you can add your virtual tours, video tours, and even branded tours. Now, branded tours, what the difference is if you have a virtual tour, maybe you have a virtual tour company, and they just go through the house and, you know, do all this great virtual tour footage for you. Well, that's a virtual tour. But a branded virtual or video tour would be where if you're giving contact information, or maybe you're showing your sign, or maybe you're saying, call me today, I can help you. If it's branded, if it has your information, your cell phone, your sign, your company, then it belongs in the branded tour, because that means that it doesn't go out onto sites where it shouldn't be. So basically, there are IDX sites out there where it's going to feed out that information, but of course it can't have your information on it because everyone's seeing it as the public, right? So make sure when you're adding in your virtual or video tours, you're putting it in the appropriate field. Okay, hopefully that makes sense so far. So once you start adding in your listing, now for me, I do this even before I go on my listing appointment. And what I mean by that is I go into Realist, I get all the information about the property, I then go in, fill out all this information, and I save it as a partial. Why am I doing that? Well, I probably don't know what the final listing price is at that point. I don't have the photos yet, right? I haven't measured the rooms. There's still going to be some pieces of the puzzle that I don't know. So I want to go in and I want to save it as a partial, which basically reminds you that it's now going to be saved for 3 months. Then when I have that listing price and I have those room measurements and I have all that great information, I can just go in, put it in very quickly and save it, and now make that listing live by clicking Save Listing. As Brian showed you, if you try to save the listing and there's something missing, it will provide an error at the top. If you click on that error code, it'll take you right to the specific field that that error is addressing. So for instance, if you forgot to put in the city, it's going to take you, if you click on that error message, it's going to take you to the city field so you can quickly fill it out. All right, adding pictures. I think we all hate the thought of adding pictures one at a time, right? So we want to be able to click on upload multiple photos at one time. You can do that. I'm going to just kind of drag this down a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. All I have to do is click add files, or you can even drag and drop them. So I can click add files. I can pick on my computer where they are. I just took a new little listing over here. So if I want to go ahead and pull in a photo, I can do that. You can also rearrange the photos. So let's say you have all your photos, you can actually drag and drop them into different locations. There are some basic editing functionality inside of here, but it's really easy to drag in multiple photos at one time. It's very quick, very easy, and again, you can rearrange them. Another thing you can do is you can add captions and descriptions. What that means is you can actually tell them what they're looking at, right? If I add a photo in and I want to say beautiful granite countertops, or wainscoting in the dining room, or I can actually put in my captions and descriptions to tell them what that photo is looking at. I'm kind of a fan of having my photos as like I'm walking through the home. I want to walk through the front door, want to get that beautiful foyer shot, right? And I want to get the bedrooms and the bathroom and the kitchen. Then I want to label what they're looking at, because how do they know If you have a nice basement kitchen, how do they know which is the basement kitchen and which is the above grade square footage kitchen, right? So we want to label these and make it as clear as you want. You can add up to 99 photos. And I always tell people, if you, because I've had some really interesting properties lately, if you have a property that's maybe a little bit less than desirable, do a primary photo and then maybe take some little downtown shots, you know, of maybe, you know, a cute street or maybe a cute little main street or a coffee shop or something. Maybe the city has a sign or the township has a sign. Those are all great ways to beef up your listing count and your photo count. That means that you're going to have more photos, and that usually translates to more looks and longer screen time when they're looking at your listing. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. To add and edit documents. Now this is a big one because in another week, we're going to be showing you the mobile app. I love the mobile app. I'm just going to tell you the mobile app does so much. The mobile app allows you to edit your listings right from the palm of your hand, right in the app, but it also allows you to see the seller's disclosure and lead-based paint for the listing you're standing on. So if you can kind of think of it this way, you're showing a property and maybe there's some water evidence in the basement. So maybe your buyer says to you, well, Colleen, there's some water evidence over here. What's that from? You used to have to say, well, let me go back to the office. I'm going to get the disclosures. But now, right on your phone, when you're showing the property, those come up, the seller's disclosure and lead-based paint. So you can be standing in the basement and you can actually see it right on your phone, and you can even click the share button, which shares the seller's disclosure with your buyer. You can text it to him, you can email it to him, you can even airdrop it to him. So you and your buyer can actually be looking at the same document, and you can see while you're standing there what that water came from. So I love that, but you have to actually put the seller's disclosure and lead-based paint into Paragon in order to make that happen. So in order to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the Add or Edit Documents. You're going to click on Add New. Simply browse your computer where your seller's disclosure is. Wow, I actually came right to that file. I love when a plan comes together. So I'm going to say I'm going to put my lead-based paint disclosure in. I'm going to call it lead-based paint disclosure or seller's disclosure, and I'm going to quickly edit it. So you can add it, you can modify it. You could put, if you had a survey done on a property or if you have a bank addendum on a property, you can actually add those all in here. Of course, you can add and edit open houses as well. You can click Add New, and put your time, your date, and if you're using the mobile app, when you actually share that with your clients, they'll see when open houses are as well, right in the mobile app. So the mobile app does so much. And of course, it allows you to edit your listings as well. All right, so the important thing now is that we're asking you to go in and also make sure you're looking at your listings. A very easy way to preview your listing is to go to the Market Monitor. Want to go to My Info. Your listings will appear right there. So if I want to look at my listing, I'm going to click on that number 1. It's going to open up that listing record for you. Now what Brian did, because we know change is really hard, Brian did something that I really, really like. What he did is he actually tried to recreate your Realty Server a ticket or your Realty Server report so that it looks a little more familiar and it's easier to check your listings to make sure that they're accurate and everything's coming over for you. So if I go to Reports and I go to Clare Gladwin, which is underneath the details, I favorite that, and then I can even make that my default report. And what that means is it's not 100%, but it looks pretty similar to what you saw in Realty Server. That way it's easier to check your listings over, and you can make sure all that important information that you entered into Realty Server is right here as well. Under More, so if you're looking at your listing and you want to change something, so I showed you how to pull in from the tax records, how to save it as a partial, and how to save it as a listing. But what if you want to change something? You can actually go to More, Maintain the Listing. Now your office admins will see all the office listings in here. But for me, I just want to see my own listings. So I can go in, I can click select an action, I can change a price. I can change an associate as a broker, you can do that. I can add or edit the remarks. I can share my listing on Facebook. I can update the showing time information. I could send my listing via text to someone. I could make it pending. I could clone a listing if I'm going to relist it or add a virtual tour. So anytime you want to maintain your listing, all you have to do is go to the listing, and I'm going to show you that again. Again, we're recording this, so don't worry if you're not taking detailed notes. I'm going to leave you with some great notes, and it's being recorded so you can see it again. But basically, it takes you back to those same great steps so that you can go in and add in anything or modify anything that you needed to change. All right, so let's do that one more time. So I've got my listing open. I'm looking at it here under the More section. This is where I can go in and I can maintain my listing. It's going to show me my listing. I can go to select an action, pick what I want to do, add a virtual tour, edit the expiration date. And some of these things you can only do as a broker, by the way, but I'm going to click maintain my listing. And then I'm going to make whatever necessary change. So this one happens to be pending. So if I, knock on wood, happen to put it back on the market, I can go ahead and change this right here from pending to active. All right, so pretty easy to add in your listings. Again, the hardest part is where do you start, right? You're going to go right up to that listing section right over here. And you're going to add in a listing, or maintain a listing, or even go into the listing from a partial listing. And now you can add in things like the new price, or your listing price, things of that nature, and save it. A couple other things is when you add your listings it will allow you to share them via text, which I did not see how to do that in Realty Server, so I apologize if it was there and I missed it. But when you open up a listing ticket, remember you can text that to clients, not only for your listings, but let's say I open up a listing here. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll use this one. I'm going to grab my listing here and I want to text it over to my client. So all I want to do is I want to go up to the share button. You'll see the text right next to it. I'm going to go ahead and I can pull from my contacts, or I can add a new contact from here. So really easy to text, or if you just wanted to email it over to your client, you of course can go right over to email right here, click on it, and you can decide which of the reports. Now I recommend anytime you're emailing something, email a report that has client in the title, because that's going to have your branding and your photo and your contact information. There's also different ways to send it. You don't have to send it as a PDF. You can send it as a very interactive link. You can send it as a PDF, a hyperlink, or an interactive link like you'll see in the Collab Center. Let me show you again where we're adding in the data share. Now, if you open up your GoToWebinar panel, there are again 4 handouts with all the cheat sheets for you. So you'll have cheat sheets for everything I'm covering. But remember, if you go to the MLS Documents section, now, of course, you will not see all of these. You will only see the Clare Gladwin folder here. I've started creating the data sheets right in there for you. So if you need a residential data sheet, now we have different data sheets for residential, for vacant, for business, commercial. So I'll be adding the rest of those in today, but those data sheets are right there for you. Simply click on them. You can print them, you can download them. And there's also an addendum for extra features. We heard one of the extra features Brian recently added for you was a log cabin and log home. Those are listed on the addendum. So there is the traditional fields that you'll experience in the MLS, and then there is also an addendum for additional fields. Some of those came from great suggestions from the board at Clare-Gladin. All right, I'm seeing some questions, so let me bounce over to our questions box here. I would like to see waterfront listings. Where would I search for waterfront listings? Okay, so great question. If you are looking for waterfront listings, you can search by a particular lake name if that's what you're looking for, and I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for or you just want to see all waterfront listings. If you're looking for just waterfront, there is a yes, no field that you could put yes, and that will bring up waterfront properties. However, what I experience over here as an agent, and it may be different where you are, I'm just going to kind of throw my suggestion out here. If I have a client who has a boat, and maybe it's really the boat that's important to him, he wants to get his boat to Lake St. Clair, I would probably suggest search on features must have one or more. So let me show you what I mean. If you take our searching class, we'll show you how features work. But if you click on the magnifying glass, if I go to water features here, okay, and I'm going to scroll down, maybe this client who has a boat says, you know what, I'd love to be on waterfront. That'd be great. I would love to, if it has a steel seawall, I just want to have my boat at my house. If it's on the river and I can get to Lake St. Clair, that's great. If it's got river access, that's great. Remember, you can still search by maps. I can pick the map area of the waterfront I'm looking for. A lake frontage would be awesome. I'm very close to Harson's Island over here, so that would be great. Canal frontage, and what that's saying is, as long as it has one of those items, then it's going to show up in my buyer's list of results. So if you are saying, yeah, I just want waterfront, but you know, it's really more about his boat. He wants to be able to get his boat down to Lake St. Clair. This may also be a good option, meaning it just has to have one of these features and it's going to show up in his list of search results. Okay, if that helps at all. So I think that was your answer. Remember, when you are searching, you can search by lake names. That's why it's important for you to add the lake name when you're putting in your listing. If you want to search by lake name, you do need to add that field in. Not everybody, you know, is experiencing all of the lakes that you have. Now, I know one of the things that comes up a lot is people say, well, we used to have this lake name lookup, and it was just, you know, I could just see all the lake names. Well, that would be great if you're looking, you know, just at the Clare Gladwin information, it can be done. But right now, the DNR says just lakes, I think they're over 7 miles in area. There are 17,000 lakes in the state of Michigan. And by the way, a lot of the lakes have the exact same name. So there are 8 Deer lakes that I'm aware of. So if you wanted to search by a particular lake name, you want to add in a field called body of water. It's very easy to add fields in. You just go to customize, type in body of water, because that's the RESO name for lakes. And by the way, you can move that body of water anywhere you want. It's a simple drag and drop. Just drag it into the location that you want it to appear, and then apply and save. I'm just going to apply it so you can just see it. Now, the idea is when you're searching on that body of water, so let's say you are looking for active properties on that particular body of water. Let me find it in my list here. On Wixom Lake. So I'm looking for active on, I think Wixom Lake was by you if I remember correctly. How many are there? Well, currently there are 38 active properties on Wixom Lake. So you can do it that way. I will tell you, as an agent, I am mostly searching by map these days, because even if the agent does not put in the subdivision name, as I mentioned, if they've missed any information, I can still pull up those listings. We're in such a market right now that we don't have enough listings. We don't want to miss any. So if I want to, I'm just going to use Rochester over here. If I want to search by map, I can go over to draw. And I can say, okay, I'm looking for anything in this particular area. Maybe my mother-in-law lives over here. I don't want to live quite that close, so I want to go ahead. So you can create up to 10 shapes on your map. You can do multiple cities. You can do radiuses. You could put in, maybe they want to be 2 miles from work. You could put in their work address and 2 miles. So let's say they work at 41539 Wessel. The only address I can usually remember off the top of my head, so use that again here. And I'm going to click on my search. There's my subject property right there. We're going to pretend that's his work, and he wants to live within 2 miles of his work address. what I've done is, this is really great for comps, by the way. I've now created that 2-mile radius. Remember, it uses Google Maps. So if you want to also grab that little man and move him onto the map, you can actually walk down the street. You can see the property to the left. You can see the property to the right and have a really good indication of exactly what that subdivision is going to look like too. So a whole lot of things that you can do, but it's more of a data entry class. So I hope that you feel a little more comfortable adding in your listings. Remember, even if you added them into Realty Server, you are going to still see them in Paragon. You can still edit them in Paragon. Just find your listing. Go up to more. This is where you can maintain your listing, make any changes you need. You will now also notice you now have the schedule a showing button that works with your showing time. If you take the Collaboration Center class, we're going to show you how to even use the showing time carts and some of the new features with the showing time carts. So a lot of cool stuff happening there. Remember, add in your photos, add in your disclosures, add in your branded and unbranded tours so that you have all the information. Again, what you see in here, you'll also be able to see in your mobile app. That's coming to you on the 23rd. Brian hopes to have it ready for you next week, but we're going to do the first class on Tuesday, the 23rd, so he can correct any errors that may show up. All right, let's jump back to our questions. I hope I answered your question correctly. I apologize if I didn't. If you need to rephrase it or there's something else you need me to add, please just let me know. Where did you find the MLS Docs again? Great question. Okay, so to add in your MLS Docs, again, you can, if it's an existing listing, you can go to more. Let me go to my listing here, so I'm not screwing up anyone else's listing. They would probably not be too happy with me. So I'm going to go into my listing, and I'm going to say I want to add those seller's disclosure documents. So I'm going to find my listing. Again, you can do that right through the Market Monitor like I did, or you could put the address in the Power Search right up at the top. Going to click Maintain My Listing. Okay, that's going to show you your listing. And basically what I want to do is I want to open up that listing. I want to go to the Add or Edits Document section. Okay, so it's right over here on the left where you see my mouse. Add and Edit. If I want to add a brand new one, I'm going to click Add New. Tell it where it is on my computer. So I'm going to say I want to add a new, do I have a seller's disclosure in here? Oh, yep, right here. Add my seller's disclosure in here. Even put in a description that it's my seller's disclosure or survey, something of that nature. I'm going to click on Save. And now that's going to be added to my listing record. Now, if you're asking where do you find them on the listing, that's a great question too. So let me actually back up here. So if I go back to my listing, if you are an agent getting ready to write an offer and now you want to use those seller's disclosures, they're right here under the third button, this Associated Docs button. So if I click on Associated Docs, this is where I'm going to go in and see that seller's disclosure in lead-based paint. Of course, I can go ahead and click on them and I can print them, have my clients sign them, email if you're using e-signatures. I'm a big fan of e-signatures. I use those a lot. So that's going to be my seller's disclosure. And you will see these right in your mobile app too. So keep in mind, you'll see that there. All right, so really good questions. Let me see if we've got any more. Gail, hopefully that answered your question. Let me know if it didn't. I entered a sale the other day, and after entering the closing date and sales price, Paragon required me to add some additional required fields before it would allow you to save it. And the question is there a way to get around this? The answer is really no. You're right. That's a really good point, and I'm sorry, I should have probably brought that up. If you are going in and you're editing a listing, and now there are certain fields that are required that weren't filled out before. What it's really asking you is it says, you know, hey, we need to know, is the bathroom on the first level? Now, I don't know if Realty Server asked you that or not, but if you don't have it filled into Paragon, it will not allow you to close out the sale. So yes, you will have to answer every required field. If they're not required, you don't have to. But if there's something missing that you didn't have to fill in before, but you now do, you will need to fill that in before going forward. And the idea is we're trying to get as much accurate information on these listings so that you have more history from here going forward. And I know it is, as an agent, I totally get it. It's not the most pleasant that you didn't have to fill this field out before and now you do. So I apologize. Going forward, though, it will give you a lot more information to be able to search and view. All right, so sorry about that. I know it's always harder when you have to enter more information than you're used to. How do you autofill multiple property tax IDs if a listing has more than one property? Okay, I had this happen recently. In that case, if you're filling out the tax ID, I generally will fill it on. Now, it depends on how it's zoned, so I have to be careful how I answer this. So please probably see your broker on doing this. Where I am, I sold a property, but it also had another tax ID for an adjoining lot. So there were basically two tax IDs. That was one of those things I put into the agent remarks. I let them know that the adjoining lot had an additional tax ID. So that's how I did it. But your broker may advise you differently, so please check with your broker. He may have a different policy if it's multiple lots. Like if it's a builder and it has 5 or 6 different lots, sometimes they want each lot listed separately. So do check with your broker on what their policy is on that one. So good question, Shannon. I hope I answered it the best I could on that one. There's no easy answer for that one. Please let everyone know that saving your listing as you go should be done from the listing entry page. So it does have an auto save in there. So if you should be kicked out, and let's say you start entering a listing and then there's a storm and there's a power outage. Now, it is always a great idea to save as you're going through. I save as a partial quite often, just in case. But it is a great idea to, as a backup, do those save techniques. But if you should get bumped out, generally it will ask you when you're logging back in if you want to pick up where you left off. So there should be, when you do get bumped out, if you lose your internet connection, let's say, there is some auto saving behind the scenes. Now, again, it will ask you, do you want to open up where you left off? Okay, so really good questions today. Brian, are you still with us? Not sure if you're still with us. If there were any questions that you saw, could you briefly show how to use the copy and clone function? Absolutely. So let me first preface this by saying you should never, and check with your board on what your rules are. And I want to insert my foot in my mouth because every board is different. Every once in a while, I think I say it as it should be across the board, but then a board has a different rule or something like that. So let me start off by saying check with your board and what the rule is. Our policy is if you listed something and you now want to clone it, meaning that let's say they took the house off the market for, I don't know, half a year, and now they want to put it back on the market. You can go to that maintain listing. So 8515 Helen, I use my listing, that way you don't screw up anyone else's, which is always a good idea. So I'm going to find my listing. I'm going to go to more, and I'm going to go to maintain my listing. Okay, and then over to the right-hand side, you will see select an action. Now, keep in mind, you cannot clone someone else's listing. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And every board has different rules, but our board, there's a hefty fine for cloning someone else's listings because that means you could see their photos, and photo damages for stealing someone's photos or copyright damages are triplicate. So you never want to try to clone anyone else's listing. But if I copy or clone listing, it basically opens another instance of that listing and allows me to copy it into a new. Now, my listing happens to be pending, so this would not be what I would do that on. Usually you're going to find one that's expired, that maybe expired a few months back. and then you can do the copy and clone function. And as you can see, it's creating a copy right up here for you. This allows you to keep all your photos. Of course, you can go in, you can add labels and descriptions, as I mentioned. I don't have one in here, so not a big deal. But if you wanted to copy all of the information that pertains to that listing, so you could just relist it at a later date, you can do that. So hopefully that answered your question there. Oh, okay, really good. Thank you. You know, Wayne, I want to thank you. You always have really, really good questions. So thank you for sharing them with me. Yes, if you have a bunch of lots and you just want to, that's a really good example. I hope you don't mind if I use it. So if you were working with an association and maybe they have 20 lots for sale, or maybe you are working with a builder and he's got you know, a bunch of spec houses that he's already started, you could actually do that clone feature and then go in and tweak the address numbers or tweak maybe some of the differences, but you don't have to start everything from scratch. So that's a really great idea. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Okay, now please keep in mind a couple things. You do have free tech support that is available 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So don't feel like you're alone. I know as an agent, change is incredibly hard. And, you know, trying to do this, especially just coming out of a COVID year, I totally get it. But there are real life people just like me. I promise you, if you call our tech support number, we do not send you to another country where you're on hold and then trying to get help from someone you can't understand. They are real in-house instructors, just like myself. I handle a lot of the calls. You may someday even get stuck with me. And we actually will walk you through not only Paragon things, but the reason we do our training and we do our support in-house is if you have a question about, let's say, zip form, the zip form connection piece, or you have a question about another product like Realist, we don't want to have to send you to zip form and then Realist and then over. So we want to be able to support you at one number for all the products that you're getting through us. We, as Brian mentioned, we don't provide zip form, but we do provide you the connector piece that allows you to fill out the data sheet and push your listing back. That's going to be coming for you guys at the end of the month too. So the idea is we want you to have one number to call and get help. So you're not calling all these different companies and trying to get help and no one really talks to each other. It kind of gets frustrating. So you can reach our tech support at 248-247-1040. And again, you'll speak to a real live person. I think our average hold time is less than 2 minutes, so someone will be able to walk you through. So just remember, the easiest thing to do, go in, please check your listings right now, validate your listing so your listing isn't showing up in the middle of a lake. That's obviously very important. Go in, make sure you check them over, make sure if you're ready to mark it pending. We're going to show you how to do that even more efficiently right in the HomeSnap app. So you can literally just click your listing and make it pending with one click, which is always nice. But remember, it's adding a listing and maintaining a listing. And obviously the type of listing is very important. You do not want to put your vacant land in residential. So do be sure when you're adding in your new listing, you're picking the class so it falls under the right class. All right, if there's any other questions, now is the time to ask them. And thank you again, Wayne, for all your really good examples. That does can you clone an old listing in the previous MLS system? And the answer to that is as long as you pull up that listing, yes, you can open it up and you can still clone that listing. Really quickly, remember, if you only have the Realty server number, let me jump back to my home screen. If you only have the Realty server number, if you don't have the new MLS number, you can also go right to your quick search and use the alternate MLS ID. As a matter of fact, I think I've got one right here from yesterday's example. So if I want to pull up a Realty server number, I want to find the listing that way, I can go to alternate MLS ID. And as you can see, it immediately found it. I can type in search. I can open up that listing, so I'm going to show you that in just a second. And same exact process, because remember, we brought these all over into the system. So if I want to go in and I want to clone it now, same exact process. I'm going to find that listing. I'm going to go to maintain a listing. Now, this is not actually my listing, so I'm not actually going to walk through that whole process here with you, but it will open up that listing and you can go in and you can clone it. So really good question. I love it. I love when we get questions. Sometimes when I don't get any questions, I get very worried, like everybody's asleep. So that's really good. So great question, Judy. I think I have them all. If I did miss your question, there's going to be a survey after this class. Feel free to type in your questions into the survey, and Brian and I try to go through those every day, and we'll try to get back to you if we did miss your question. So otherwise, I want to thank you so much for attending the class today. I appreciate it. I know it's hard. Thank you for your patience going through this. I promise when you see a lot more properties that you have access to and can sell, hopefully you'll find all of this. I know it's a headache going through it, but hopefully you'll find it all very worth it. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great day today. And be sure and get out there, get us some new listings, sell, and definitely list. Have a great day.